Okay, welcome everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're standing. For those who don't know, we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. So if you have any questions, you can send them directly to me. And sometimes there are specific subjects, but the real and only subject is your questions. This is the only subject which is really important because that makes the difference if this is needed or not. Because if there's no questions, if you're not having any questions, that means you're probably not doing well. Because if you're working intensely, questions will come, will arise. So when there's no questions, nothing much is there to be said. Okay, let's make some silence first. Okay. Okay, I will answer your questions now. I'm able to sit straight and without moving, without difficulty for over 2 hours and a half on my lazy body. My lazy boy, my lazy body maybe. I was wondering if sitting on a meditation cushion instead would be better since there will be more discomfort in this posture. Hmm. Okay, first this one. The point is not discomfort, that is not the point. Sitting in a straight position, upward position, um, and stillness is the point. It's not about increasing the levels of pain, because in this posture, in this straight posture, whatever is there of discomforts, of agitation, it will surface in this steadiness, in this stillness. But the more you can sit, the longer periods, it's not much about the posture. Of course, there is advantages and disadvantages in both sitting, but this is irrelevant. If you sit in a chair or sit in the floor in an upright position, like I explained before, then it begins. And whatever is there, it will manifest as physical pain, as emotional noise, or mental agitation, or pain, or whatever. It will manifest. So if you want to uh, do something to deepen this steadiness, then you have to sit for longer periods. But 2 hours and a half is quite good. If you have something else with it, it is a good start. So, uh, but probably other things are missing. Let's go to the next one, then we will see if there is a. While practicing self-inquiry and fighting with drowsiness, would you recommend changing to meditating on the breathing until drowsiness is gone before going back to self-inquiry? Well, I explained before that there are some practices before meditation, for example, the cold shower, maybe cold shower and reducing food. I think these things you've done, or at least you said you would. So probably this is in place. So if this is in place, but drowsiness continues, and this question, would you recommend changing to meditation on the breathing until drowsiness is gone before going back to self-inquiry? This is revealing the other, this quest before, sorry, English, well, I have to think a little bit. This question before about creating more discomfort, and this changing to meditation on the breathing, this changing this need, there is an urgency there, so silence is not present as you are moving. Okay, if you're sleepy, that is one thing, but you have taken your cold shower, you're reducing your food, so this drowsiness, it is from a different order, and the order is incompatibility. It is a question of vibration. I will explain better. I think it was, what was the, yes, you did ask the question before in the previous satsang about, what was it? About the desires, if it was not an egotistical, and it is a journey from the ego, yes, but there's the journey of the ego with mundane desires and with divine ones, and this is quite different. And when you look at the spirituality in a way that it will improve uh, with this greedy outlook, then this becomes mundane. So what happens is meditation cannot deepen because there is a layer of noise, and then there is superficial silence. And this is because of these distortions on the quest. So this need to uh, change the posture, coming out from the chair, going to the floor, change the technique before going to self-inquiry. This shows what is there still on the wheels. So I have to again make you the same pointing. Is there guidance there? I already answered this question for you also. And this is saying something, this is pointing to something. Because if you see, like I explained in the previous satsang, this is about surrender. And the one who is in control, who is shifting all the time, there's no surrender. So before it is possible for guidance to be there, this fire has to begin, or there must be some direction apart from your own. Because if you're in control of this, it doesn't matter. And this restlessness, these doubts, they talk about a restlessness, something that is in a hurry. And it is normal to be in a hurry, but it is also revealing. So as you pick up a technique, for example, you're practicing self-inquiry with, and then you're thinking, should I change? This is interesting because it shows that you're understanding a few things, but this understanding has to be increased. So this drowsiness, apart from these, from the cold shower and the reducing of food, so this talks about a resistance. And this means the silence which is needed for self-inquiry is not there yet. So maybe it is good if you're practicing self-inquiry all day long and with the meditation alongside it, maybe it is good for you to pick up a technique, a meditation technique, and practice it and deepen it. For example, for 2 hours, and then do your self-inquiry for 1 hour, extend it for 3 hours instead of 2.5. But there are other messages that your process is giving you that you're not quite understanding. Most of them because you're not ready to understand it, because of a lot of things that I cannot even talk to you, because for the same reason, you're not ready for this. But the practice continuing, unless you change for something else, because this pattern of the mind, it is there for everybody, and this need to change. There is difficulty in investing and passing the test of time. See, and time tests also. So these hurries and all these things, they cannot go too far. So eventually, all these restlessness have to give in. But for them to give in, you will have to understand a few things about where you are. What are you doing with your time and your life? Is this really tuned with the divine quest? And I tell you straightforward that there's a lot of things that are not in place. Don't take this as judgment. You can if you want, but it has nothing to do with it. Because without knowing what are the obstacles, you just waste time and waste time and waste time. And because of your specific characteristics. You will have to intensify your practices so that these clarifications can come in a way that you can receive them. Because if I would say them to you now here, you wouldn't be able to deal with them. But if they will come in your own mechanisms, maybe then it will be. But there has to be room for it. There has to be room for it. The majority of the time is qualifying oneself for. That is the majority of time. But this is telling you that the level of silence is not where you think it is, and it's not yet suited for this. I'm not saying to stop it, not that. But one advice is put some technique of meditation, not changing, establish a fixed time, for example, 2 hours, then try to stretch it for 3 hours, then with self-inquiry. This is just advice. And again, for the first one, maybe your mind has told you that it understands the logic, but well, you'll be surprised. So adopt one sitting posture, one meditation technique, and stay with it. Stay with it. If your mind is looking for profits, for something to, it has to rest and rest. Work has to be there. Put the body in place, put the techniques, but then know this evaluating and all of this is restlessness. If you want to complement your questions, maybe it will be better for a better clarification in what we can talk. Okay, I will answer your questions now. Hello, Sriman. My name is Kiambi. Welcome, Kiambi. I have watched your online satsangs and you insist on effort. I insist on something that you will consider to be effort. But I found out that the more I make effort in my practice, the more it feels conflicting and the more there is tension in my head and parts of the body. When I make effort, it seems like stirring dirty water. When calmness comes by itself, I become naturally quiet without much or any effort. I can just sit by myself. According to these occurrences, what should I rely on and what should I do to intensify the practice or eventual establishment into silence? Well, first, it is important for you to clarify a little bit what this effort means. What are you doing concretely that brings effort? Because if by effort you mean, because this sitting quiet means what? If you sit quiet, still, in an upright position, there's no effort unless you're not ready to sit in that position. Because if it is, there's no effort. What do you mean by sitting quiet? Does it mean that you're just laying back and relaxing? This is one thing. But you can sit quiet in posture of meditation and without any effort. But for the majority, this sitting quiet in a long period of time, not very long, but more than 1 hour, for example, this will take a lot of effort to stay silent, stay still. So what does this effort means and what is this bringing? What are you doing? Because if you're practicing meditation and you sit straight and you become still, it is like stirring dirty water. And you can only stir dirty water if the dirt is there. If there's no dirt, no dirty water, just clear water. So if this dirt is there, so this is the direction. Because this sitting quiet is superficial only. And it will not bring much because, well, you have to look at the rest of your day. How is your day? Are you completely dedicated to this? What is happening more? If you want to complete this, it will be good because more clarification can come. In meditation, there is an obstacle I do not seem to get past while still attentive or present. And that is the complete letting go from navigating in mind and from the mind itself, by mind and from the mind itself, into dissolving to beingness or staying detached as the witness of thoughts arising on the screen, as I have experienced some time, or completely dissolving that I don't even feel the body or anything but blissful nothingness. Is there anything that I can do to be able to just let go of the dictations of the mind? And yes, what and how? Okay, so here's more or less is the answer. The level of silence is not deep enough, and there's still interests in the world, in what the world is giving. So these interests, as you try to deepen, as you sit still and quiet, your attention will move to them. So this is your interests, and this tendency in the mind is there because these meanings of freedom and dissolution, this has still something connected to the world, this world that you're experiencing. So this has to be uprooted. As you practice your meditation, if you're having a technique of meditation, you have to clarify a little better what you're doing, if you want. But if you're still staying in silence, resting at the presence, so that is what you have to persist. And you're given a choice when these thoughts are arising, going after them or staying there. You have to choose wisely. But it will be difficult to choose. It will take effort to do that. Because if attractions are there, if they weren't, attention wouldn't be moving. So there is this tendency in the mind, which is built on habit, ongoing, and it is going because of attraction to the world in some sense. So this has to be cut so for you to be able to remain still, remain there, untouched by these thoughts. So this effort that I insist, it's not really effort. It's not. It only appears to be if you're not according to your level of inner noise, of agitation, of misbeliefs, according to this. Because if these are at the right level, then no effort, because this is about being still. It is the effort of being still. Stillness of the body, stillness of the mind. If there's no agitation there, so no effort required. So this is the effort I talk about. So for some, those who insist in, oh, nothing to be done, that means, oh, just let me abide here in that silence and in whatever sense it is. And the noise and agitation is there, and it's not being seen, it's being ignored because this is not a quest for freedom, it's just a quest for well-being. That is a different subject, and it's not really quite even well-being. Okay, my friend, if you want to clarify a little bit of this, then we can make it more clear. But for meditation, to intensify, it is about increasing time. Sometimes there is a need to change the technique, but this will come with guidance in some sense. Not from here. From here, it's just jumping, 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 jumping. It's just feeding the mind with the same kind of nurturing it is used to and maintaining all its structures. So this will have to come through guidance in some sort. But it is like this. When you're practicing meditation, it is like stirring dirty water. The dirt will arise. If you're not, it's just like the bucket with the dirty water is there quiet, but no one is stirring it. So if you look on top, it seems like clear water. There's no dirt inside. And the dirt will continue to be there at the bottom. So this clarity of the water will be superficial only. The dirt will continue there, untouched. So when you start meditating, yes, that silence, that peace disappears through certain periods of time. It is cyclic. And as you start going through your own hell, this muddy waters, this will be the experience. Then it will clear again, and peace or bliss can be present. Then it goes back again, deeper and deeper and deeper into the layers of dirt, until nothing else is there. Dangerous to say, but let us risk. If you have the level of silence which is needed, then this restlessness will not be there, this drowsiness will not be there, other things will not be there, and then the rest of the dirt can burn intensely directly through this real silence. When you're not at that level, intensify your meditation, your practices, and you will get there. So as the mind looks at this, it always wants to be at the bigger level, the higher level, because there is this tendency. But like I said in other satsangs, humility is always the best path. So in case of doubt, just work. Because if you're at that level of silence, it will appear and remain, appear and remain. Well, I will answer your questions now, Peter. When it comes to craving or aversion, aversion is stronger. No. It shows in procrastination and avoiding the spiritual disciplines. Of course, they cannot live together. The illusion and truth, they don't really have the same vibration. They cannot stand together. So yes, the character will have aversion to spiritual practices. This is why one of the best spiritual practices to train this to become an instrument and not the master, but the disciple. It is to train the mind to do what it doesn't like to do. This is very good because eventually if you do this long enough, it will come to a point where it doesn't give opinions, and if it does, you have a distance to it. Identity has a distance from the mind, and you can use it as an instrument and not as that which is dictating or directing. So this is good. But craving and aversion, they have the same power. Maybe craving is even more powerful than aversion. And it keeps you in balance, without any equanimity. As long as one is there, the other is there, because the one who is not craving doesn't have aversion. What is? Because he doesn't have any preferences. No preferences. So as long as one is powerful, the other it is too. And the craving and the aversion, are they really different? Because if you have an aversion to spiritual discipline, for example, probably you're craving for a nice and soft bed. So if you're getting averse to something, it's because you're craving something which is opposite, at least. So they are together, because if you don't have any, if you're not craving anything, so what comes, it's what comes. But if what comes, if you're craving something different, then aversion will be there. Because, and yes, there is this, because one gives pleasure and the other one gets pain, but this is superficial, it goes deeper than this. And everybody can learn more or less to accept the aversions, accept what is coming of bad, and bad is something which is exclusive to your judgment, to your beliefs, what is good and bad. So this bad is very relative to you. It's not the same for everyone else. So it's not real. Because it is relative to your own world, to your own beliefs. So in a sense, more or less, if you can train this, you will develop this power to withstand these things that you don't like for a while. But if you don't do the same with your cravings, it will never go too far. There will not be peace there. And by peace, I mean silence, stillness. You will always be compelled towards something, away from something. So cravings actually are even more important. In the beginning, yes, aversions are more important because they destabilize a lot. But as you go deeper into that practice, you will eventually understand, or will have to understand, by wisdom or by frustration, that cravings play a very significant part. And this shows in procrastination, avoiding spiritual disciplines. Yes? So this is why there's nothing wrong with Advaita. Nothing wrong is it's excellence. But the way it is being passed, you see, it is for these situations where the work is still there to be done, whatever that means. And if it's not done, that doesn't mean it is good or bad, but if it's not done, you will not move, you'll just be there fooling yourself. And what a better way of picking something that can give me an impression that I'm doing something, spiritually speaking. And I have there's nothing to be done, and I can avoid the spiritual disciplines. The part of dissolution, and usually this is a mindset that it is about greed, just as something else, just a worldly, something which is sacred becomes worldly because of the onlook of the one who is pursuing it. So it doesn't bear fruits. It will bear something, even if your mind creates it, because there will be a need to maintain and protect this character. It is its design. So eventually, spiritual disciplines are one of the things that can make the process more real, more alive. Because you can delude yourself with a lot of things, but when it comes to spiritual disciplines, you can still do it. A lot of people does it because adapting is there, but it is quite more difficult, and you narrow the odds of distraction. See? So if you're doing spiritual disciplines, you start moving all the dirt, and then you have a real chance. If you're not, you just, dirt is underneath, and there's superficial peace, but nothing else. So this self-inquiry becomes too superficial. Everything becomes superficial. But meditation, or you can go through, intensify, and maintain and intensify, and it can continue without interruption, or it doesn't move forward. There's no way to counter it. Or you stop meditation, or you'll be in frustration, or moving, or a bit of both. But going around it, not possible. Possible for 15 minutes, half an hour, but what comes to 1 hour and 1 hour more every day, 2 hours a day, for example, which is very little, but still, for most, it is a lot already. This you cannot counter. There's always exceptions, and there are always those who can. But how important is it meditating 2 to 6 a.m.? Is it due to sattva? Yes, more or less also. But yes, it is the better period, because there is a specific sattvic period. It's not all, but it is the part of the day which is more still. Nature is still, quiet. There's no noise anywhere. There's no movement, no agitation, more or less. So it is the best period. And if you can use this time, this will be very good for a lot of reasons. Because you will, only to maintain this practice, you will have to go against a lot of things that are inbuilt. Your sleep, stay there, you will feel a lot of, how do you say this? Aversion, resistance towards it. And this by itself shows you where you have to go. It is like this. So okay, so your first question was, my mind has a strong avoidance tendency. So this was the avoidance towards spiritual practices. But to have avoidance for spiritual practices means that it has things that it prefers to be doing. So this is the worldly goals, the worldly attractions. So whatever is spiritual, you can see this. Whatever is connected to spirituality that you can pursue, avoiding these spiritual practices, then you can go. So the mind lets you go, more or less. But when it comes to this is when you can see these constructions there, this resistance arising. Before that, it was just shanti shanti, more or less, because distraction is at high levels. So these things are not even seen. Okay, chanting Om during the daily activities, like when I'm doing house chores, walking, driving a car. Is the practice stronger when chanting out loud or mentally repeating? It is different. You see, when it is mentally repeating, it becomes more subtle and it works with the subtle structures. When it is loud, it works with the loudest structures, even with the physical body. And also, so both are very good. Eventually it moves to the subtler one, but don't worry about this now. From what you're giving as what you're describing, these periods for loud chanting, they should be kept, and they are very good, and they will prepare for this subtle part. But you can do, depending on the time you have, because maybe not, maybe you will not be able to chant loud all the time, because you will disturb others, bring unnecessary attention towards yourself, which you don't need. So, but if you can practice all the time loud, still use a little part of the time to this mental chanting. The correct sequence is loud chanting, low chanting, soft chanting, and then mental chanting. And then listening to the mantra innerly, listening to it. They are different. They are both very good. And if you can practice both, if you practice during the day also, then do both, because they will bring you different things. So this idea of stronger, weaker practice, weaker techniques, stronger techniques, best technique, worst technique, this is confusion. See? Again, the greedy aspect of the character. What is the best? What gives more profit, spiritual profit? And this mindset has to be removed. This is why a living process and guidance is very important, crucial, vital, because the strongest technique, the best technique is the one that you need. And this only guidance knows. So what is stronger? Is it stronger to practice this way or stronger to practice that way? The same part that is avoiding spiritual practices says, okay, so but if I have to do it, let me practice the most strong one so I can finish this right away, so that I can resume what are my real goals. So this is the root of this hurry, of this question for stronger. And humility is not there. It needs to be gained, because it is precious. It is precious, humility. And then when you look at it, and say, I'm having all these difficulties, why should I have the highest, the best, and then, am I the best, the highest? So all these things are needed, and the majority of things that you cannot know about what is the best thing, what you need to work, especially this part, what you need to work. The reason you cannot do it, you cannot receive it at once, is because you won't be able to deal with it. Even for those who are really strong and say, no, but I can deal with it. Yeah, but this dealing with it has a different meaning, For it to bear fruits, it has to be fertile. And that is the fire of spiritual practice that prepares you, makes that land fertile. So, okay, Jacqueline. Hi, Sriman, can you explain what is the difference between meditation and self-inquiry? Well, there's a different explanations about one thing and the other. There's tons of explanations. I'll keep it simple, because maybe the more simple it becomes, usually it is more difficult to understand according to the complexity of the seeker. But I've made a video about meditation, and that it taught a meditation for self-inquiry. And this attitude as the mind is quite different. You see, in meditation, you fix your mind in one technique and you practice it. So your mind is attentive to this. Into self-inquiry, the mind has reached a level of silence, of emptiness, and it is resting at the source of identity. So this self-inquiry, this is a practice for self-inquiry. The self-inquiry is this inquiry into the self, into your identity, your real identity, is moving your attention to this identity constantly, apart from everything else. So, but then this multiplies the ways that it is practiced and a lot of things. So this, when the mind is moving towards the sense objects, and the question of who am I arises, your attention drops sense objects, directs itself to the source. So this questioning, which is not a mental thing, because it is this turning attention towards the source. This is the self-inquiry. It's not about making questions. It is directing the attention towards the source and then remaining there. Okay, Peter again. When you have awakened to witness consciousness, explain this better. What does this mean? Because these have different meanings for different people. So everybody says the same thing, but it doesn't mean the same thing for everybody. So I will not take it that it is the same. So if you can please explain this so that I can answer. How valuable it is to read books like Ashtavakra Gita and Vivekachudamani and the like. In Vedanta, the primary teaching is listening to scripture from a teacher, and then say meditation is second. And they say meditation is secondary. Please comment on this. Everything is secondary or primary according to the level of the seeker. It's not about the teaching, it's about the seeker. Those who are teaching Vedanta, for example, they are talking to those who can receive it. And for them, this is true. Those who are teaching Bhakti Yoga, for example, or whatever it is, they are true for the ones they are speaking. Nobody is speaking for everybody. So those who are teaching Vedanta, they are not speaking to everybody. And if they are, well, that is their misunderstanding. And I'm not speaking for everybody here. I made that clear from the beginning. I'm speaking only to certain. This point is not about teaching, because teaching is available a lot. So to who they are teaching, they are right. But even if you're practicing meditation, these books are very important, if you're ready for them. So when you have awakened to witness conscious, so you mean that when you become aware that there is this attitude of observing the silence, being the witness. Is this that you are talking about? I will wait for your answer. If you had WhatsApp, you could directly. Okay. And this primary teaching is listening to scripture from a teacher. And it's not from a teacher, it's from a qualified teacher. And to listen the scripture from a qualified teacher, you have to be a qualified student also. But this teacher now means something else, because before teacher had a different meaning, more respectful meaning that it has now. Now a teacher is like, well, before it had a different meaning. And to hear this from a qualified teacher, you have to be a qualified student. You have to be ready for Vedanta, which is what we're talking about. Not that it will make any harm to be exposed to it without being ready. It doesn't. Nothing of these things make harm. But you can make harm with these things, with the interpretation that you will give to things, with the bypassing things that are important for you. This makes a difference. It's like saying, okay, so why bother walking from here to there if I can fly? Why bother with that? So if you listen to this, for example, so why should I bother making all this distance if I can fly? So I just wait until the capability of flying is there. But maybe what the person was saying, that you can catch a plane at the airport and fly. Maybe. But if this was what the person was saying and you misinterpret, then you'll just sit there and you will arrive nowhere. So being exposed to things, it's not bad in itself. Everything is good if it has the spiritual vibration, but that doesn't mean that you cannot use it in a harmful way. And this is the story of these days, not only do you use it in a harmful way towards yourself, but then you start blah, 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 towards the others. And you pass on your confusion. And this is worse, because the responsibility you have towards yourself has a certain amount of consequences. Very, very small compared to the responsibility you have towards others. And this by itself would be a big subject. So you see, not that this will be difficult, but if the silence is there, the right amount of silence, this becomes something else. You see? Say, if the teaching, listening to scripture from a teaching, being able to listen, really listen, to have this inner stillness, inner purity for this listening, to be tuned with a real teacher, with a master. Of course, this is much more important than meditation itself. Not that it is dismissing meditation, because if you're listening towards the master, then ask the master if you should dismiss it or not. But for the one who has difficulty in doing spiritual practices, who wants to avoid them, so what is the interpretation of this? Let me just listen to this. So this is why, you see, so satsangs these days, and what most of you expect from satsang, is a lecture on the nature of reality. You just listen there and contemplate, and then you imagine that you are doing something. Most of you are not. Not all, most. And you could be doing something, whatever that means. Whatever that means. But surely the one who is ready to drop meditation is not the one that has difficulties in doing meditation, in doing spiritual disciplines. He had discipline itself. He had already purified, released of a lot of things that were there as obstacles, and he is ready for this next step. And that is guidance that says so. Guidance says. Not this, because this, Of course, it will do everything in its power. It will use illusion, it will use wisdom, and it will use illusion in the lack of wisdom. So I don't want to meditate. Oh, but they say there that listening to scriptures is better, that, and meditation is secondary. But that means what? What does it mean? It is secondary. It means that you don't need to practice it, or it means that in what you're in the way you're using your time, that you don't need to practice meditation, or that it is secondary. This is more important, but this should be there too, but this is more important. Is this one or the other, or just establishing the importance of both? Because if you're exposed to a qualified teacher, to a master, his guidance and being in the presence of guidance is far more important than meditating only by yourself. But that doesn't mean that you should stop meditation. It's just establishing the level of importance. And this is telling you that tunement with guidance is by far more important. And that is meditation. That is meditation. Tuning with guidance. That is the great meditation. Seems it's over, the questions. Okay, if you have more questions about these things that were discussed today, and even these questions that I've answered, if you want to complement them, to elaborate a little bit more, the more you speak, the more you reveal what's happening in there, the more it can be presented to you. The less you reveal, the less it can be. Yes, I believe both is important. Yes, but the first one is more important. But as long as you don't have the first one, but that doesn't mean that because one is more important, the other has to be dropped. But in your case, if the difficulty is there to practice meditation, to be steady in it, compromised, disciplined, then this is by far more important now. And this will prepare you to that one which is more important at another level. So this idea of that which is important as a greedy outlook, this only makes you lose time. You see? The most important, the most strong technique, the most adequate technique is the one that you need now, is what you need now. This is the most important. You cannot compare techniques to each other, only your moment. This is guidance that determines. So if you're there with this struggle, but you like to hear scriptures, read them, because this qualified teacher is quite difficult. But even, yes, but continue with your meditation, because what your difficulties are telling you is there's a lot of distortions, and the resistance shows you what is more important now. And it is to establish in your spiritual practice, because this means established in a world. Most of you, most of the spiritual seekers, they are still, even with a lot of time dedicated to this, they are still deciding to which world they belong. To the world of the spiritual quest, of the worldly quest. Still deciding, even after 30, 40, 50 years, they are still deciding this. But when this decision comes, then things move quite fast, quite fast. Okay, Instagram is ending here, it's time. We'll end this also here. So we will be back Saturday and Sunday. Okay? Okay.